a squadron of geese was migrating south, when one in the ranks opened wide his mouth, and out came a sound new to their ears. It made them all laugh and reduced them to tears. When things had calmed down, they were all lost for words. For Bruce had a problem uncommon to birds. They soon worked it out. 'Twas the hiccups for sure. So discussions began about finding a cure. One goose cried out, "Water! That's what you need. Get down to that lake and have a good feed." So down they all swooped, united as one. They'd stick by poor Bruce till his hiccups had gone. "No, that's not the way," another goose cried. "You must sip from a cup, but from the wrong side." Well, Bruce gave it a try, but by the 10th cup, he keeled over full and had to give up. Now, one of the flock had trained as a nurse, so she cooked up a cure before things got worse. Whew, what a pong! The cure smelt of old fish. But poor Bruce was desperate and took hold of the dish. Then he spooned it all down, eating up every drop. But his hiccups got worse. They just wouldn't stop. They ran out of ideas by the end of the week, until a naughty young goose stuck a peg on his beak. They all watched and waited. Then Bruce gave a cough. His body expanded and the peg just flew off. Had Bruce been cured? Had the young goose been clever? No. Bruce hiccuped again, this time louder than ever. A committee was formed later that night to provide poor old Bruce with an almighty fright. A plan slowly formed, but it had to depend on the cunning and wit of their medical friend. Bruce was called forward for a medical check. His bits were examined, especially his neck. The nurse said, "Young Bruce, you're decidedly weighty, and you've got a condition that affects 1 in 80. First you get spots, then you get lumps. Your feathers turn purple and fall out in clumps. Once it has started, it cannot be stalled. I'm afraid within minutes you'll be totally bald." Well, Bruce's jaw dropped. His heart went a-clatter. This was no joke, but a serious matter. Then the nurse pointed out that since his jaw dropped, all had gone quiet. His hiccups had stopped. "And there's no need to worry," she firmly insisted. "The disease I described, it never existed." Then the geese burst out laughing. Then they laughed even more. They giggled and chuckled and fell on the floor. But it's a dangerous thing to laugh with such glee, and Bruce knew too well what those dangers could be. For laughing that hard does strange things to a goose. Yes, it gave them all hiccups. Well, all except Bruce. So Bruce sat back and smiled at the flock. Now they were the ones who were in for a shock. Boo! There is a creature all scaly and red who says he's a dragon. His friends call him Fred. But he has a big problem. He just can't breathe fire. So when he says he's a dragon, other creatures say, "Liar." "But I am a dragon," poor Fred insisted. "I'm one of the last that's ever existed. Breathe fire, breathe fire. If you are what you say, breathe out some fire. We don't have all day." "Okay," answered Fred. "That's just what I'll do. Come back tomorrow at 1:45. The animals murmured and nodded their heads, made a note in their diaries, then went to their beds. "Oh, what have I done?" said Fred sometime later to his very best friend, Alan E. Gator. "I've never breathed fire. I'm not old enough. I've tried it before, but I ran out of puff." "Oh, please don't despair," begged Alan, his friend. "I'll cook up a curry. That'll help you no end." Alan chopped up some chilies, onions, peppers, and spice. Then added some peppermints, as it didn't smell nice. The food gurgled and glooped and bubbled and spat until Fred shouted out, "I'm not eating that!" "Go on now and try it," said Alan with glee. "It'll make you breathe fire. Honest, trust me." So Fred gulped it down, then froze on the spot. Steam shot from his ears. He was getting too hot. "Breathe out! Breathe out!" screamed Alan at last, "or you'll surely explode with a mighty great blast." Then Fred just let rip with a vigorous gust, then fell over backwards from the powerful thrust. But no flames appeared. Fred lay in despair. "Try again!" shrieked Alan from behind the armchair. So Fred kept on trying until night turned to day. Then they started to gather for the fire-breathing display. "Oh, Fred! Oh, Fred!" they called out in time. "Prove you're a dragon, the last of the line!" Then Fred raised his hand to tell them he'd failed, knocking over the pepper which he deeply inhaled. "Oh, dear me," said Fred, as the spilt pepper rose. "I feel something building right up my big nose." He started to huff and puffed in some more. His chest pumped right out. There was trouble in store. It was then that it happened. A mighty explosion. The sneeze was so big it could empty an ocean. A huge sheet of flame shot over the crowd, with a roar and a whoosh so enormously loud. When it was over, not one sound was heard. Then Alan said, "Bless you." And Fred said, "My word." The creatures were shocked, but no one was harmed. Then they sent up a cheer, and Fred said, "I'm charmed." He'd proved to the crowd he was what he'd said, a magnificent dragon, who they called Fiery Fred.